Welcome to episode number 8 of the National Land Realty Podcast, where we discuss all things land. Our goal here is to inform, educate, and entertain those of you who own land or are interested in the buying and selling of land throughout the United States. My name is Mac Christian, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer here at National Land Realty. I'll be your co-host for this episode because joining me today is Bryce Berglund. Bryce works as the Content Marketing Specialist at National Land Realty. Today, our topic will be how to lease your land for hunting. We'll be discussing how to set up contracts, the types of land that make good hunting leases, how your lease gets valued, and plenty of other additional valuable information. Our guest today, Aaron Sutton. He's a managing broker in both Kinston, North Carolina and Virginia Beach, Virginia. Aaron has worked around real estate for 13 years. Continuously, he has been one of the top producing land professionals in the country. He is one of those lucky few people whose profession and his hobbies are the same thing. Aaron loves the outdoors, and he has an immense knowledge on the topic. Now, sit back and enjoy the show. All right, so I'm here in the Zoom session with one of our content marketing specialists here, Bryce Berglund. You want to introduce yourself here real quick?
Hi. I'm super excited to sit down and chat with you guys today.
Awesome. And we're talking today with Aaron Sutton out of North Carolina. Today's topic is leasing your land for hunting. Aaron has a ton of experience working with land and around land. And Aaron, I want to, I can read your bio off our website or anything like that, but I think that's a weak approach. I want to know your background. I want to know how you got into the land industry. Tell everybody sort of like, what gave you your experience and how you got into this.
I got you. So basically I'm born and raised in East North Carolina and hunting around our farms. We own a bunch of farmland around here with my granddaddy, shooting squirrels, dove hunting, deer hunting, turkey hunting, you name it. It's kind of what I grew up doing. And life takes on and you go to college. I ended up at East Carolina University. I double majored in business and construction management. But during my time there, I got my real estate license and started selling a little bit of housing. And I figured out that I was not passionate about housing. Just the monotony of it, dealing with lenders, and it just wasn't fun to me. Made a little bit of money, but it just wasn't passion. So basically, I started looking around for better hunting land during hunting season, and I was running across different property companies, and I noticed that there was things called land brokers. And I said, I've got my real estate license, so why can't I be a land broker? So I went to work for a brokerage company, and I learned a lot of things to do with the company and with business. But I started building my own rapport with industry specialists, foresters, surveyors, appraisers, attorneys. And so my passion for the outdoors kind of led me into the real estate market, for the land brokerage market. And now I have joined into a great company with National Land, and I'm one of the managing brokers for North Carolina and Virginia. It's been good.
Excellent. You spend a lot of time outdoors. You do a lot of hunting. Talk to me a little bit about your outdoor pursuits there.
Yep. So I'm in 3 different leases. I've got one personal lease around my home here in Kinston. Then I'm also in a lease in Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and that's about 1,200 acres. And then I'm also in a lease with 13,000 acres in Kansas. So, traveling the Midwest, man, it's a big deal. So.
Yeah, for sure. And so what you're getting at too is that you've worked with leasing quite a bit, even on a personal level.
I have on a personal level, on a business level. I've helped clients manage leases, both leasing their land and also leasing land. And I have every week somebody calls me and says, "Hey, what you got for lease?" So I know how to navigate those waters as well.
Awesome, thank you.
So maybe to kind of start us off here to get us going, could you talk just briefly about, what is leasing? Give us maybe an overview of the concept and how you see it.
Well, leasing could be anything. I mean, it's from you could lease a car to a house to obviously what we're talking about, leasing land, but it's basically a contract between one person that has a product and the other person that wants to use that product or asset, and a payment of some sort, whether it be typically it's monetary, but you could also trade things out for work, or here's my tax bill. You just pay my tax bill and hunt my land or whatever. Kind of scratch each other's backs in different ways. So, but basically, in layman's terms, it's you have something I want, and here's a little bit of money for it, and use it during a specific time, set time.
I was trying to come up with a way to describe it, and I didn't get to that point, but that's probably the most perfect description that I heard on leasing. That's pretty dialed in. So, hey, what's the most common questions that sort of you get asked? Like and I know like anybody that talks to you that's already done leasing, they probably understand it. But for people that are sort of like, putting their toes in the water and they're curious about, like how do I do this? How do I get a lease? What do I look for? What's some really common ones?
First question is how much? What can I make on my property? From a landowner side of things is, what's it worth? And that fluctuates across the country. In our lease in Kentucky, we're at, $30 an acre. In my lease here in North Carolina is at about $7 an acre. So it depends on how, to put it bluntly, how big your deer are. If you got duck hunting, if you're allowed to turkey hunt on it, is it a full scale lease or is it broke down into just deer hunting? Then we have some stuff here in North Carolina that bear hunting land that is phenomenal bears, trophy Boone and Crockett size bear. And those leases go for a lot of money. So that's one question is the payments. Then another one is your insurance. What happens if somebody gets hurt? Well, you got hunt liability insurance companies everywhere on just Google, and you'll find a dozen. And typically the leasee will pay for that. And it's fairly inexpensive, a couple $100 to maybe a couple thousand, depending on the size of the lease. And then how many people are in the lease? If you've got 1,000 acres, you can't go put 30 or 40 people on it. You got to control it, manage it a little bit for safety reasons. And also, you got 40 people on 1,000 acres, you're going to kill everything there is and won't have enough for 40 years to come.
Plus, at a certain point, it's not a lease, it's public land, right?
Truly. I mean, yeah, it's cheap for everybody, but it's not beneficial for everybody. Another question is, what kind of weapons are going to be used? Is it shotguns? Are we rifle hunting? Is it bow hunting? And a lot of people ask that for safety, trying to protect their neighbors, or I don't want somebody out here with a rifle and we've only got 50 acres. You can make it work, but you're shooting a high-powered rifle that shoot, a mile or two over 50 acres. It's not practical.
Yeah, you got to establish your short range versus your long range, kind of stipulate.
That's right. Now, one of the questions that we get, and this could be a state-by-state question, is dog hunting. Do you hunt with dogs? That's actually a really big one in North Carolina. So then you go to Kentucky or somewhere like that, and they don't do that. Missouri. You took a group of dogs to Missouri, they skin you up.
And that can be set by either the state or the landowner, right?
That's
like there's two ways that you can approach that. It might be legal in the state, but the landowner doesn't want to, have that on their land. So that they, you got to know whether to stipulate it in the leasing contract, right?
And it's neither good nor bad. I mean, I've got friends that hunt with dogs, and I've got friends that still hunt. I don't care which one that it is, but definitely landowners, they usually care one way or the other. They're either for it or against it. There is no, it's very rare that it's a gray area.
Right.
So I know that a lot of what you've been talking about so far has been dealing with hunting leases specifically. What other kinds of leases do you have experience with or work with? Because I know that there are a lot of other types of leases when it comes to owning land.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, there's all kinds of leases, commercial leases. I've dealt with those, triple nets. Then there's your typical farm leases. You've got a tract of 500 acres and 200 of it's farmland, and you got a little old lady that doesn't really know much about leasing. Well, while you're managing the recreational lease for her, you can also help coordinate something with a farmer and make sure she's getting fair values for it. Then there's mineral leases. My family was in the mining business for 65 years, and my great granddaddy started it. You go pay a landowner for leasing their minerals and dig them and excavate them, whatever the mineral might be, whether it's gold or phosphate or coal, whatever it could be. You can do a mineral lease that way. So there's several different leases.
Yeah, and so and this, our topic here is hunting, and I wanted to sort of ask you, what's the process look like as far as I decide that, like, let's say I have 500 acres that maybe I inherited it, whatever, like I have it at my disposal, but I'm maybe not using it a lot, or maybe I'm only using it for maybe I'm only farming the land, or I'm running cattle on part of it, and I want to explore the possibility of leasing it for hunting. How do I go about it? And who do I contact? What's it look like? How do I get it? How do I get people to see it? So what's that whole kind of scenario look like?
So you just reach out to your land specialist that has dealt with leasing. Just because you're a land broker doesn't mean that you know everything, but deal with a guy that's well versed in it. If you're in North Carolina, definitely call me. I'll help you out. But
you're saying call me.
Call me. But man, it's a really simple process. Just I'll use myself for example. You call me up and say, "Hey, Aaron, I've got 500 acres. I'd like to lease." I'll go out, evaluate it, tell you, look at the local fair market leasing values. Then we'll talk about, there's bears on it. Eastern North Carolina is full of bears. So there's bear hunting, there's turkeys, your deer, your duck. And if you say it's a turnkey hunting operation, you can hunt everything. I tell you what it's worth, and we go from there. Then you also look at, is there a house on it? Because like our lease in both Kansas and Kentucky, we have houses on it that come with the lease. That cranks up the value on it. So, and it makes it way more profitable for you as a landowner. Typically a lease runs from, July 1st to June 30th. And that's a full calendar year there. And that covers most hunting seasons. No matter what state that you're in, that's usually got your springtime turkeys, your deer, your duck hunting. You're covering everything in that full year, and then it starts over that sometime during that summer.
Awesome. And how do you pick up, when you're working with somebody on a lease, how do you get their lease seen?
Through our standard marketing practices, social media, National Land, we started a leasing program for landowners. So we've got all of our different marketing techniques, but it's basically a lot like a land sale. We'll fly and drone photos, we'll take pictures of turkey prints and, whatever, but basically just show the evidence of what kind of deer are there, trail cam pictures, whatever. So we just use that as the same concept, marketing.
Yeah. And you were talking about evaluating sort of the lease, when somebody tells you that they want to, lease their land, or they want to explore the possibility. And you spoke to that pretty well on you want to talk to somebody with leasing experience, and you also want to talk to somebody with land experience. What are you evaluating? Is it like access roads, pathways, population densities? Like, what are you using to sort of tell somebody what it's worth?
It's all of those. We used the example of your 500 acres a while ago. We'll just say it's split with cattle land. Well, you really can't hunt cattle land. You can, but it's not really valuable there. So just say 200 acres of it's cattle land. Well, I'm going to put a premium price on the 300 acres of timber that's got a good road system through it behind that cattle. We're going to put a premium price on that, and then we're going to drop the price on the cattle land because not much value there. Or even if it's farmland, there's not a whole lot that you can, it might be 100 acres of farmland, but you can only put one deer stand there and hunt safely. So it's less valuable than a good stand of timber. So we just evaluate it from all fronts, and obviously try and get you as much money as we can and let the market dictate it. But there's definitely some tracts that are more valuable than others.
So if I am, this landowner that we're talking about, 500 acres, looking to lease it out, and we've made contact and you've evaluated my land, what are some of the benefits that I can expect to be seeing from this lease? What's in it for me, the landowner?
Well, obviously there's first and foremost monetary, the money side of things. And it might not be much money there, but it's enough to pay your taxes or take your wife on a nice, shopping trip, or take your family on a Disney World or something. But it's the monetary side of things is first and foremost. Second thing would be keeping the property clean. A lot of times you're able to strike a deal with the leasee, and they say, hey, here's $5,000, and I'll mow all your ditch banks and keep your full pass clean throughout the year as well. So that takes a little bit of weight off your shoulders of having to manage your property, so to speak. So that's
I got to jump in there. So you set up that kind of arrangement with people where it's like, okay, you can hunt this and you're going to pay, but you got to mow my ditch banks.
Usually, well, if you got ditch banks that are full, you can't see your game is good. So it's a scratch each other's back thing. But man, I know every state's different, but North Carolina here, dude, it's thick in some of our woods. So it benefits that hunter to have a good, clean shooting ditch bank or whatever that he might be looking down. But then, out west, it's a whole lot of CRP and whatever, and there's not as much cleaning up out that way. And it's different worlds, different states, different worlds. So, but over here, man, if you've got a power line running through your property or a gas easement running through your property, and you can see down that gas easement for miles. Well, you want to keep that power line or that gas easement cleaned up because the deer use it as a food plot, whatever it might be. So you're able to talk that hunter, or give him permission. Yeah, keep a power line mowed, and you can hunt it. And it benefits him too. So yeah, he's doing the work, but he's not doing it just to be nice. There's ulterior motive there, definitely.
And yeah, you spoke to the income side of things. Is it can it be lucrative, or is it usually kind of a minimal income? And I realize it's dependent on the game population density and sort of the quality of the tract. But I mean, just in general, is it just going to pay your taxes? Is it or do you pay off the land itself? Or
well, we've got 1,200 acres in Kentucky, and we pay right at $30 an acre. That's $30,000. That paid for our land. Paid for his daughter's wedding one year. So he tried to go up on us that year, but it paid for it. But then turn around over here in North Carolina, and I'm paying just a few dollars an acre. That's just paying that farmer's tax. So it can be lucrative, but it can also just be minimum as well. It just depends on where you're at. It's kind of like supply and demand. The demand is for 170, 180 inch deer. There's not a whole lot of supply of that. There definitely is not in North Carolina. But you go to Kentucky or your Iowas or Missouris of the world, and it is very, very, very good money out there.
And so what's some of the challenges with leasing your land? I mean, I'm assuming that it can be like a logistical nightmare in some situations. What would cause that? What would cause a bad situation, or what's some of the complications that can happen? One
of the biggest ones would probably be like a overbearing landowner or leasee. One of the two. A personality that's or type A that's just wanting to be control whatever, especially from the landowner side, that he's like, hey man, go lease my land. Here's, give me $5,000 and you can hunt it like you want it. So leasee pays him, and then it turns around and he's like, but you can't do this. Or, he rides down there every day at 5 o'clock during shoot time and just trying to keep an eye on his property, but he's not kind of honoring his side of things of, hey man, I'm hunting. It's 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon in November rut season, and you're riding down here just to see what's going on. So the called overbearing, but the landowner that can't let go of the control of their property. That's one of the biggest challenges probably that I face. Because how do you go to the landowner and say, hey man, you can't ride on your land? You try and make it to where it's, if you want to do it at lunchtime or something.
Is that something that you stipulate in the contract? And I mean,
no, because that usually turns people away. You try to, if there's a problem, then you try and address it. I don't typically do it in the contract. You can't be on the property, because most people they say, well, I own it. I want to be able to go on it. But I've used the example of, well, if I was leasing an apartment building from you, or an apartment, number 203 or something, you just can't come and sit in there at any time that you want to. I'm living here. I'm using it like I want to. It's my space. So you use that, and people kind of start to understand of, okay, I get you. You're on my property, but it's hunting season, and this is what you're here for. So I'm not going to mess that up for you. But there are a few people out there that just don't get it. Actually, the guy that we lease from, he's not overbearing like that, but the guy I lease here in North Carolina from, he went and sat one day. He's an old farmer. He went and sat out there and just looked at his crops one day at about 4:30 on a Saturday. I called him from the deer stand. I said, hey, I'm looking at you in the deer stand. He turned and says, and? I said, man, I'm trying to hunt here. Is like, can you mosey on a little bit? He said, oh, you don't need to shoot these deer anyway. And he drove off, but gave me a hard time. But I was literally like, man, come on, dude.
You're in the line of fire. We put life in your own hands.
It's parked on my corn pile. But so that's one of the things that we deal with. And then sometimes you deal with the unfriendly neighbors. They might want to lease the land, and you have the lease on it, so they want to be a little bit of a thorn in your side. Riding their four-wheelers on a Saturday, or just trying to aggravate you, just poke the bear a little bit. You deal with those, so they're a tough one to navigate because they don't have the lease. They want the lease. Maybe they can't afford the lease or something. So unfriendly neighbor. And then one of the biggest things is not following the rules from the guy leasing it. The landowner says, look, I don't want you turkey hunting. Next thing you know, he thinks that, well, it's an out-of-state landowner. He'll never know if I'm over here turkey hunting. Not following the rules. So that's one of them. And then the last one's probably trying to get payment from some guys sometimes. I always, when I'm navigating it, I get lease money up front. But some landowners deal with hunters on their own. And I've heard stories of, they wrote them a check and the check bounced or whatever. So getting payment sometimes. And that's where land specialist helps out. Navigate those waters, so to speak, of, hey man, we got to have your money up front before you step foot on this property. Go from there.
I was curious about, when you mentioned food plots, and I wanted to sort of ask you about the management of food plots in a leasing situation, because I'm assuming this could go either way. This could go where the landowner maintains land and they maintain a food plot for the leasee, or the leasee is given the opportunity to set up their own food plot, or any other situations, right? Like where, like, in a turkey area, right? Like setting up, your blind situation. And if there is anything in there, how is that set up? How do you go about deciding who and, what?
So typically you leave that up to the gentleman that's hunting. Hey man, you can do food plots here. You kind of give them the area that they can do a food plot. Obviously, they don't need to do it in the middle of your row crops. Out there with 100 acres of corn land out there, and next thing you know, old Billy Bob's put a chicory plot out there in the middle of things for turkeys. Like, man, so obviously, they've got boundaries there, but you let the gentleman hunting do like he wants to on it. But like I've got a 400 acre tract that's currently on the market if anybody wants to buy it. But they do lease it. It's I think it's 412 acres. They lease it for $30,000 a year here in North Carolina. But that gentleman that owns it plants all the food plots. He puts up about 2,500 pounds of corn. He fills it up the grain bin. So you have access to corn. You get to use his deer stands. It's literally, you just walk up and hunt. But you're paying a premium price for that. So it can go both ways.
So we spoke on this a little bit with some of the last questions, but what are some other red flags to look for when talking about a possible land lease with a leaser?
Yeah, and I was going to say that's what we talked about, like complications, but like what's sort of preventative measures? What do you look for? If you're looking to get into a contract with a leasee, or if you're looking at a land to lease.
The biggest thing is to look for leasee or looking at somebody that's wanting to lease your land is background report almost. If you've got a gentleman over here saying, I want to lease your land, I'm willing to pay you $4,000 or $5,000, and you look it up and he's been convicted of baiting turkeys or shooting deer at night or whatever, or poaching other land, character isn't really there for that guy. So, that's the biggest red flag. And a lot of times the hunt community is a small world. It's a very big world, but it is a very tight knit world. So if you got a gentleman out there that's breaking the law a lot, people know about it, and landowners know about it. So you're dealing with that, making sure that somebody follows the rule of the law. That's probably the biggest red flag that I'd say. You got some guys that you can tell are overbearing or type A personalities that those might be a little bit of a red flag because they might try and I don't know what the word is, but push the landowner around a little bit and try to
say they're kind of like a micromanager on the land.
Kinda. So that'd be about the only other red flag that I'd see, but definitely the biggest one is, can that hunter, can he follow the local or state wildlife law?
Yeah, it's a liability question there too. Is the landowner liable if a leasee poaches on their land? No. Okay. I was just curious about that. Like,
now I say this to cover myself. Check your state regulations, but but typically no. I mean, how can they be held accountable for something that they don't know that's going on?
I wanted to ask, if you're a landowner and you find yourself in a situation with a leasee who is, breaking laws or not following regulations, is there a path out for you? Is there a way to go about breaking that lease if they aren't upholding, certain terms?
Typically in a lease contract, you will have it that the leasee has to follow all state and federal guidelines for hunting. Otherwise, it's null and void. You put that in the contract, so that's an easy way out.
What are some other contractual things that you'd like to try to put into a leasing contract that maybe might not be typical, but something that you've maybe run into?
Well, obviously you do monetary and time frames, your typical stuff. There's every situation's a little bit different. You could exclude turkey hunting rights. Like our lease in Kentucky does not have any turkey hunting rights for us. The landowner, him and his sons, like turkey hunt. So they said, "Hey, we want to hold this off for the springtime for us." It's every situation is a little bit different. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. It just strikes me as, odd. Everything's usually pretty straightforward.
I was going to say, now you got my curiosity up. You ever have any like really weird ones? Like you can hunt my land, but you have to pet like 3 cows or something like that.
I've never had, I'm sure there's some stories out there. But I have seen to where I had a guy that leased a bunch of land from an old lady, and the gentleman actually, she went on vacation for a month. So every single weekend that he was there, she asked him to come by and check on her chickens, I believe is what she had.
I was actually going to mention chickens in that. I went to cows, but chickens was on my mind.
Chickens, he had to go feed the chickens, and she had turkeys. That's what it was. She had a couple yard turkeys that were her pets. He had to go by there and feed them. She went out of town, see her family out in another state or something, and she asked him, "Hey, will you come by and just check on my pet for me?" That's just being a common, decent person in general, but nothing weird like you got to go by my mailbox and there is a good one though. If you are here hunting, put a flag on the gate to let us know that you're back there hunting. Some kind of a marker. I've seen I don't know, the big bicycle flags. It's got the triangle reflector on it.
Yeah.
They'll get those and put those in the ground to let the landowner know that, hey, we are back here hunting. That has been one. And that's a safety point.
I didn't even think about that one either as far as asking it. And now that you brought that up, I think that that's probably very, very important when you're setting up a leasing contract, because, for safety, for, politeness, like you were talking about too, with landowners coming across it like shooting light, you don't want something like that. That's definitely a thing. Is there anything that you've worked with in the past as far as, like, let's say in situations, you mentioned cows, like where you have nearby livestock where you have to stipulate, like, you can't shoot this direction in case you hit a cow, or it's something along those lines. Has that been stipulated?
So nothing that says that you can't shoot in cattle. They definitely tell you not to shoot the cows. But like our lease in Kentucky, we do have some cattle land on it, and we are not allowed to put corn out over the cattle line because the cows, I mean, it's like
it's candy, right?
It's like candy, exactly. Yeah. So you can't really, we can put corn right up to it, but and they really don't want us doing that because they don't want the cows pushing on the fence.
I was going to say they'll push through, and they have those tongues have distance.
That's right. So we cannot do it in any field that they'll be putting cows out. We cannot have any corn out.
Okay, yeah, and it's good to know too. Like, so that's sort of, was that stipulated in contract, or is that just kind of like, hey guys,
it's a handshake. Hey man, look, just don't put any corn out in the cattle. I mean, he's got about 150 acres. So it's spread out in 4 or 5 different farms, to 20, 30, 40 acres here or there. But it's just hey, just don't do that. Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of stuff that comes into leasing that come down to like common decency, right? I mean, I imagine I'm a big fan of putting everything on paper so that you're like super double, top secret protected, on all given grounds. But when it comes down to it, a lot of it is you really want to make sure to probably talk a few times with a potential leaseor to make sure that you can get along with them, right?
Absolutely. If you can't have that relationship, it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah.
Do you ever do references?
Yeah. Have you ever leased land before? But common decency, a good word for it is also common sense. Which it's lacking in a lot of the world now. But just have some common sense about things. Don't ride your truck through the middle of a man's field when he's just planted it or whatever. I mean, just common sense. Take the path. Don't take the shortcut.
Yeah. As far as your experience, how long have you been, you mentioned your background. How long have you worked in the land industry?
Probably 14, maybe going on 15 years.
Right. So we're talking 14 years of experience of working with this stuff. I just wanted to clarify that because we didn't out front, and I wanted to make sure like you're somebody who has worked with this a lot.
Yeah, I've dealt with it for a long time, and it's been fun though.
Oh yeah,
I love every avenue of my job, from the sales side of things to dealing with leases to the headache of things. One of our guys says, we're problem solvers. That's a land broker definition, is problem solving. And it goes to leasing and sales as well. Whether it be access issues, not having deeded access, or we can't lease your land or we can't sell your land without having some kind of deeded access. Or dealing with estates, you might lease land for 25 people, a group of landowners that all live out of state and inherit it from their grandma. And who gets the money for it? So it's problem solvers. Our biggest is a good definition for what we do. But yeah, I've had a lot of experience in it. It's been fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Any last points that you want to leave us with? I mean, like we've covered a lot of topic areas. I want to be sure to make sure we make best use of time and provide maximum value for anybody that wants to listen to this.
Yeah. So, like I say, every situation is different. Your land back might be different than what I own here. So National Land's built a very, very good leasing platform. We have very smart agents across the country that are professional, they ethical, and they know your local markets of what your values are and so on. So using our platform can definitely help a landowner get the most value out of their property, and tying it up contractually to make sure that everybody's protected and that things are done right. So just give a National Land agent a call. And if you're in North Carolina, give me a call. Oh, in Virginia too. And actually I'm getting licensed in Tennessee right now. So I'll be in all 3 states.
So yeah, how do they get a hold of you?
Email asutton@nationalland.com. Best way.
All right. And again, that's Aaron Sutton in North Carolina. And you're getting licensed in Tennessee, and
I'm in Virginia. I'm in North Carolina, and I'm taking the class right now for a Tennessee license.
Excellent. Aaron, great talking to you, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This concludes episode number 8 of the National Land Realty Podcast, discussing how to lease your land for hunting with Aaron Sutton of North Carolina. You can contact Aaron or learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com.